exciting presentations. It is my pleasure to introduce the next speakers. Dr. Stephanie Rollins is an Alabama native, and she is responsible for planning, designing, implementing, and assessing library instruction and information literacy initiatives, as well as assisting with reference and research services. She has 17 years of experience as a librarian, including working in a medical, federal, special, community college, and academic library settings. Her professional interests include instructional strategies and learning styles related to library instruction and assessment, lobbying and libraries, and the Alabama State Legislature. Dr. Rollins enjoys running marathons, movies, traveling, collecting antiques, and cooking. She and her husband Greg, an engineering service chief at the VA hospital, have 2 boys, William, 15, and Nicholas, 20. Ed Cherry has been with the Samford University Library for over 25 years. For the last 20 years, he has served as the library systems librarian. In this position, he is responsible for managing the university's integrated library system, the library's web server, and several other library services, as well as maintaining and supporting personal computers and staff in public use in the library. Prior to this position, he worked as a government documents librarian, and he has earned his MLS from the University of Alabama. Please welcome Stephanie and Ed.
Thank you so much, Karen. We're so thrilled to be here to talk to you about. You can't hear me? What about now? Is that a lot better? Okay, great. Especially after lunch, I want you to hear me, right? Again, thank you, Karen. We're so excited to be here, Ed and I, to talk to you about tying electronic resources to academic success. And you'll see 3 names on this slide. We didn't talk to you about Turner Evans, but he is the guy that is at institutional, I was going to name on Ed, sorry. He's the guy at institutional effectiveness. He crunches all the data for the school, and we would not be here today without his enthusiastic support for this project and helping us with the data. I think before we can talk about our whole project and the results, it's real important to let you know a little bit about Samford, because that does kind of shape the results that we did get, and it helps you understand it and put it into context. So, I've been at Samford for about a year, and whenever I would tell people, yes, I work at Samford, they'd say Stanford, and I'd say, no, Samford. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about Samford in case you haven't heard of us. I went to school at Alabama, and all I ever heard about was Auburn and Alabama. So in case you're not familiar with Samford, we wanted to let you know a little bit about it. This is obviously our college, and in the middle is the library with the bell tower, which is really cool. We hear bells chime at 4:30 every day. We have I always say the name wrong, Carolina, that plays the bells, and he's actually visually impaired. It's a real neat story. But one of the things we wanted to tell you, not bragging about Samford again, although we have exceptional students, we just want you to be able to put our research into context. Samford was founded in 1841. It's one of the 100 oldest schools in the nation. We have a relatively small enrollment. Unlike Mississippi State, we have about 4,600 students. We have about 8 different schools. And one of the things about our research that made it kind of interesting and difficult was there are over 204 majors in our school. Our incoming freshmen are stellar. I wish that I had these kind of stats. But 35% are in the top 10% of their class. The average entering GPA for freshmen is 3.68, and they have an average ACT score of 26. I don't think I would have been accepted at Samford, but it's a very unique stellar freshman class. There's a 12-to-1 student ratio for classes, which is very small, intimate, that you can have those relationships with students, which makes it ideal as instruction coordinator, librarian, they really get to know you. It's fantastic. Again, as you can see, the library is figuratively part of the center of the campus. We have about 14 librarians, 30 staff, and we're super busy. We have really great support from the faculty for library instruction, and we get about 200 sessions a year, which may not seem a lot compared to you guys, but there's about 4 people that do that. So it's mainly me, which I love, but it's very busy, very involved campus for information literacy. Again, the point is not to brag about our students. I think, you need to let your college talk for itself, and I wouldn't brag so much, sort of, except that I really think it puts our research into context, and you'll see that when you see the data. But before we do see that data, I think it's important to talk to you about why did we want to do this? What were we trying to do? And so I'm sure most of you saw the update to the Values of Libraries report. It's called, I always get the name wrong, Connect, Collaborate, and Communicate, a report from the Value of Academic Library Summits. Mouthful there. And this report kind of gave us a framework for some of the things that we feel like our data kind of helps answer. And I think it's so important in today's world, especially in this economy, to think about the value of the library. And these are questions that I think all of us, in some, no matter what position we have in the library, that we're trying to answer, we're trying to demonstrate that value. Either to ourselves, within the library, to the deans, our stakeholders. Also, so important always, to us, especially to me being in instruction, is student learning and success. What we're doing, is it having an impact on the students? Are they doing well, or do we need to totally evaluate what we're doing and do it differently? And then, of course, the data. What data is missing? We didn't have some of this data before, and so it can kind of start a conversation because you never had this data before. And then, what are the competencies? What kind of level should we be at as far as success? So those are some of the things that kind of framed our survey and our data. Before we can, again, talk about our study, it's very important to define, what do you mean by academic success? Do you mean graduation rates? Do you mean retention? What kinds of things are you talking about? And so I felt like we needed to state the obvious, that we're talking about that it's a high GPA, and the higher the GPA, the more successful the student is. And then we're not looking at library use as it relates to instruction or circulation. There are other studies that have done that. We weren't able to really get that data right now. So we're specifically talking about the use of electronic library databases. So GPA and electronic library databases. So that kind of framed our questions, which were, can the use of the library actually be linked to academic success, period? And then if so, what about the use of these electronic resources? Because we pay all this money, are they using it? Is it tied to academic success? So those are two of the questions we wanted to try and answer in this study. And so in order to do that, we came up with this process, which Ed's going to talk about, and he's also going to talk about the data.
Do I even need to use the mic? How's the level? Saying not. It's sort of like asking everyone absent, please raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay, so even more definition. Samford uses EZProxy to allow authenticated users to access our paid online resources. You may not use EZProxy, but you probably have some means. It could be Shibboleth, it could be Athens, it could be, I can't remember what Innovative's own proprietary system is called, but there are a lot of options out there. We're using EZProxy. The university uses Banner as our campus management system. It's used to manage just about all administrative functions of the university, including financial aid, alumni development, human resources, admissions, everything like that. You may have different products, but I'm sure you have something that does those two functions. We first performed an analysis of our EZProxy usage log fall term 2010, and we discovered that about 2/3 of our use of databases was coming from on-campus users. It's not really a surprise. The university is heavily residential, especially among our undergraduates. And in our scenario, online or on-campus users went directly to the online resources without seeing a login screen that I've got up here. And our audit log recorded that as anonymous use. And we wanted to know more about our users. So in the spring semester of 2011, we started requiring on-campus database users to log in. The libraries, we didn't make that decision lightly. There was a lot of discussion about that. We were worried about a potential negative impact of creating a barrier to our databases where there wasn't one before. We finally decided to take it to see what happened because students and everyone else really has become accustomed to logging in to access web services of all types, be they campus services like Blackboard or email, or personal services like Facebook. You know, the good stuff is always behind the login prompt, and I think 5-10 years ago it might have been a barrier. Now it's not so much anymore. We felt the barrier, would be less than we feared. Now, one other thing about our research is it's not focus group based. It's not a survey. We didn't ask the students how they would do something, and they were actually unobtrusively observed actually doing their work by looking at who is logging in. They didn't tell us what they think we want to hear. This is based on actual use of our online resources. Now, from what we've done, we don't know what they were doing once they logged in. There's a disconnect between who they are and what they were doing. We don't even really know why they were logging in, but we are recording just the fact that they logged in and moving from there. We have information on what they're doing from counter statistics, but we haven't made a link between who is accessing what database and viewing what full text. So we don't have that link between who and what. And frankly, I think our IRB board is probably happy with that way anyway. We also wanted the data for those 2/3 of the people that we didn't know who they were. That was the other reason why we went to requiring logons for on-campus. In retrospect, we didn't see any complaints about the new login requirement from on-campus users. It seems like our users just adapted with no drama. And our usage statistics kind of show that. In fall 2010, we logged 55,000 unique user login events. Fall of 2010, 59,000. So just, average year-to-year increase. Now this slide shows what the audit log looks like. I've anonymized the IP address and the username to protect the identity of the innocent. You will notice that these 5 users logged in within 5 minutes of New Year's Eve. I don't know. I have no idea what they were doing. They were using they were logging in and using our databases right at midnight instead of eating black eyed peas or kissing the one that they want to be with for the next year or whatever. The username comes from our University Central Directory. It's also used in their email account. And at the end of the semester, I sent a log file that looks like this to Toner in our Office of Institutional Effectiveness. It used to be known as Office of Institutional Research, and I think that's kind of a generic name for this office that gathers information about the university and then provides data for decision support, either to administrators. They also do this for external customers like iPads and SACS reports and that sort of thing. So the data analyst, Toner Evans, took that login, which he could match up to a unique identifier in Banner. And once he had that unique identifier, he could get all the demographic and financial data about students. IR departments typically pull a data set for each semester, and he was able to match up who was logging in with. Are they a freshman? Is this a political science major? It's she's a female. She's in a sorority or not. She's all those demographic things. So really, all we started with was just user psmith15 logged in. And from that, we could get all this demographic data. This is an access query that he used to link to the data. And really, when I looked at this, I was kind of reminded of that famous New Yorker cartoon, not the one about the dog on the internet. The one that says, I think it should be a little bit more explicit here instead to it. Really, I can't be that explicit in what IR did to give me the data. But what I got back from them is really what I meant. So what data did we get? I got a spreadsheet with about 20 different tabs on it. Students by college, students by department, by major, by level, by class, by gender, undergrad GPA by department and class, students by race, ethnicity, athletic status, Greek status, and even faculty by department and staff by department. All the reports show the percentage of that population who logged in at least once over the course of the semester, and the average number of users in that population. Like I said, I got data on college, department, and major. Grouping students by school, by college, sometimes puts too many disparate students together. You've got art students along with biology students and geography if they're in the arts and sciences. Their use is very different. So grouping them by college gave us too few groups with too many people. Grouping them by major, like Stephanie said, 4,600 students, 200 different majors, and that includes 6 different ways of saying undeclared or undecided. So for us, the grouping them by department is kind of the Goldilocks level. It was just right. Depending on your school, major or school may be more appropriate for you, but for us, by and large, by department was the best way to look at it. Really, I'm going to focus on the top 3 reports there. When we get to the GPA, we'll be looking just at undergraduate data. There's not a whole lot of GPA variation among our graduate students. I guess they're kind of self-selected out by the time they get to grad school. Okay, so we gathered data grouping students by school or college. This is a slide showing how many students by department logged in at least once. This grouping is some of our humanities students. And you'll see, first of all, that almost all the students in English, religion, classics logged in at least once. The reality is those 3 columns, everyone but one logged in. You'll also see students in art, 55%, interior architecture, 61%, much less likely to log in even once. We're not sure why yet. Maybe those departments focus more on studio work or lab work. Maybe art students use, the printed art books more than they use online resources. And to be frank, we don't have a lot of online resources for our art students amongst our databases. Now, if we look at the average number of logins per student, it kind of amplifies the trend here we see. We saw different levels of use of our database among different departments. So here is the average number of logins for each of those departments. And you can see classics and English, religion are the 3 highest there. And again, you can see that those art students who were less likely to log in at all, those who did log in, logged in less frequently than students in other departments. Similar disparities when we look at science disciplines, biology / environmental science and mathematics, computer science, much less likely to use our databases than the health sciences. And really that's not surprising. I mean, you would think that nursing students or pharmacy students or pre-health students would be using our resources more than maybe someone who's taking computer science. Now let's look at some data with the GPA added. This is in the broadest category we have, female and male. And first you see upper left the percentage of students who logged in, and then you also see the average number of logins. Now if we want our hypothesis to be true, you want to see those bars getting higher as you go to the right, from less than a 2.0 GPA to 3.5 and above. And it's interesting to note that among the women, there's not a correlation just in the fact that they logged in, but there is a correlation in how many times they logged in. For the men, you can see the chart goes up for each one of those half-point GPA groups, both in how many of them logged in and how many times they logged in. So we're going to see this pattern repeatedly. So, as a spoiler, we do see a correlation between people who have better GPAs and those who use the library databases. Okay, now here's undergraduates by class. And again, you can see in every class, you see that same upward trend. The higher the number of logins and the higher the percentage who logged in, the higher the GPA. A couple of notes on this slide. Freshman database usage is high across all the GPA groupings. We attribute this to that aggressive library instruction Stephanie was talking about. Almost all freshmen attended at least one instruction session over the course of the fall term. Among seniors, the number of GPA below 2.0 was only 3, and that's why that first bar is so low. That's 1 of 3 who logged in at least once. I think that by the time you get to your senior year, you may be self-selecting out. If you're performing at that low level, you may not be still around in college. And like I said, there are only 3 seniors in fall term who had a GPA of 2.0 or lower. If we look at that data a little bit more carefully, this is the average number of times that you log in, and again, you see that same kind of building up, particularly among freshmen and seniors. The juniors, it almost looks like there are 2 different things going on there, with the 2.5 and 2.99 standing up above the GPA range, just above and just below them. But you do see that same trend for every class there. Now from here on, when I'm talking about GPA departments, I'm going to focus just on the percentage, or the number of times they logged in, not the percentage who logged in at all. In some cases, like in our religion department, like I said, every student but one logged in, and so looking at the percentage of those who logged in each group isn't that instructive, but looking at the number of times they logged in is. If you look at exercise science and pharmacy departments, you'll see a spike among less than 2.0 students. That's another example where a small percentage of students cause a spike like that. Less than 2% of the education for the exercise science students, 4% of the pharmacy students had a GPA 2.0 or lower. But they were logging in at a rate higher or equal to those with higher GPAs. Some departments, even though I said it was the Goldilocks setting, some departments had too few majors to really register anything. This is again looking at social sciences. And in the social sciences, we see probably the most striking representation. You see the biggest differences between the low GPA and the high GPA. Some of those students in communication studies and econ finance logging in a lot of times at the highest GPA levels. One of the other interesting things here is you look at the accounting and management information systems and compare that to the econ finance quantitative analysis, both from the School of Business. But the first group is logging in a lot less frequently than the other group. So that's one of the things we're going to want to study. Why are students in this department of business school, what are they doing differently? Do we need to reach out to them? Do they just not use our materials? Do they use some other materials that don't go through EZProxy so we don't track them? Here's a chart showing the number of logins among our humanities departments. Again, we also have plastics and interior architecture departments, but the number of those students is again too small to include in the chart. A small group of music students, only 6 with a GPA of 2.5. If you look at music over here, you see this spike here on the first bar. Like I said, that's or those first 2 bars, that's a very small percentage of the total number of music students. You also see 1 or 2 missing bars in some of the departments because they just didn't have any students that were below 2.0 or below 2.5. Our department seems to be kind of unique among the humanities departments in their lack of reliance on the library's online resources. It looks like there's no clear direction there. You can see that the highest one is the 249 group. But those first 2 columns in art there are 2 students in the below 2.0 and 5 in the 2.5. So if we ignore those first 2 columns there, you still see that trend of students with GPA using our resources more. Isn't that kind of the thing that we want to see? That's the kind of thing that we kind of infer and we expect to see, we hope to see, but it's nice to actually see the numbers in a chart. Now, I've shown you all these charts and it's great, but I guess I need to show you the real statistics. This is a scatter plot showing undergraduate students, the number of logins, LI on the horizontal, and the overall GPA, and then a line showing the median there. And while some of those charts show, each bar stacking up a lot higher, you see a much more gradual line there than you expected to see. And the reason why is because so many of the students are clumped in that upper left corner of that, and it really annoys me that there are so many students that have 4s and 3s that didn't log in even once. How do they do that? How do we get to them, I have a similar chart I didn't include in this thing for graduate students, and it shows that same line. It's actually a little bit flat. It does rise, but it's more at an ADA compliant ramp rate than even that really steep Mount Everest line that you see there for our undergraduates. And that tells the statistically significant. Now, Toner Evans, the guy in our institutional effectiveness office, says it is statistically significant, but it's a weak association. And it's because so many of them are grouped in that 2.5 and higher. The guy I really feel sorry for is whoever this person is. I don't know if that person was even there at the end of the semester. I don't know who that is, but someone who didn't log in once and they got no grades to show for it. That's where I wish the zeros up at the top of the chart where they shouldn't get any more credit than they got. But that line shows you the statistically significant line, but I want to show you a couple of other lines. This one is I call Occupy the Library. And those people are the 99% up there. I don't know, like I said, that's not a mathematical line, that's just eyeballing where I think about 99% of them are. It might be 99.5% or above that yellow line. But that's where our students are. You can see very few below 2.0, and indeed, very few below 2.5. And most of them logged in 60 times or less. And then the other line that I want to draw is the Here Be Dragons line. Because there's no one in that bottom right corner of the chart. It's uncharted territory. When I looked at that, and I immediately thought of those medieval nautical charts. They don't know what's there. Here Be Dragons. I don't know. Maybe Here Be dropped out students. But that's the Bermuda Triangle of our research right there. No one tried that hard with that little success. Now, like I said, and like Stephanie told you, we have a small population of mostly overachievers. But we do see confirmation that there is a link between academic success and library use. Now, my best friend over in institutional effectiveness, he said he would love to get his hands on data from a school with a more open admission policy. A school with more students, tens of thousands of students or something like that might be more represented across all abilities than the students that we have. But yeah, he would love to see, this kind of data from a larger school. And I would think that you probably have that kind of data at each one of your schools. It's a matter of finding someone who's enthusiastic and willing to put the time to merge the data with the demographic information. Okay, so Stephanie is going to talk about some of the implications of what we found here.
Okay, can you hear me? So since it was after lunch, we thought that we just tag team you because that seemed to be an effective strategy. Okay, great. Now we're moving on from dragons. I love data. I love to crunch data. But our director is going to want to know, what does it mean? How can we use this data? So just want to talk about that for a few minutes. For me, it's huge because I can look at those departments where it doesn't seem like we use the library and target instruction, we can target outreach, they start that conversation trying to figure out, well, what is going on? Why don't they use us? Don't they like us? What is going on with this? And so that's some of the things we can do with that. We can target groups of students, departments, we can get on that department committee meeting, all those different things. Also, it informs how well they're doing. Our students seem to do very well. If you ran these statistics at your institution, would you have the same results? So we want to know as far as assessment, and not just for student learning, but also for our collections. We bought that great resource. It was really expensive. That department had to have it, and they don't use it. So what's going on with it? So those are some of the things. We don't have this unlimited pot of gold money anymore, if we ever did. So also, being accountable. In an era of Google and Wikipedia, we're always constantly trying to justify our existence. And at Samford, we have what's called outcomes-based budgeting. Anybody familiar with that? Basically, our funding is tied to academic success of our students. What can your department do for our students? So it's very important that we have these kind of data and statistics to say, hey, the library needs this money, needs this funding, because we actually do. We're tied to that high GPA of your students. The more they use us, the better they do. Perfect, right? So the other thing, too, is it gives us that opportunity for that faculty and librarian collaboration. Ed and I have partnered up. I get a lot of information about how to do instruction better, and we get some information besides just sharing with us how people use the resources. So it all ties them together. We can collaborate. We can also collaborate with faculty. One of the first things I want to do after seeing this data is go talk to somebody, knock on somebody's door in the art department and say, hey, how can we help you? What are we doing? What aren't you doing? Is there a database you need? What can we do to help you? That kind of thing. Again, we can increase target funding for our resources. Not just the money. Like I said, we don't have that pot of gold. But maybe we can reallocate staff. Maybe there's a different way we can do services, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is just kind of very quickly give you a couple of examples to illustrate why this data is important and what kind of things we can do for it. One other thing, we were real excited to learn, was it yesterday, day before yesterday, that all of this data about GPA has gone into a report that gets presented to every single dean in our college before school starts. So they can see that GPA, the use of the library. So it's got more statistics than that, but that's the first thing they see. So we've justified our contribution to the college. It's very, very important, I think, to have that data. So to show you a couple of examples. One of the things that we think is a huge success is if you look at chemistry, you'll see that it has kind of a high usage, about 80%. One of the things that we discovered in kind of looking at database usage is we have this database called ACS. Are you guys familiar with that jewel? And one of the things we were looking at was cutting it because it wasn't used. And so the chemistry department actually needed that database for a credential. And so one of the things that we did is we went and partnered with that department. We talked to them. We actually helped them design assignments that use that database. So there comes in the instruction part of it, the collaboration. And we're able to get them, they use the database, they use the library a lot more, and they used it for those particular assignments. The best thing in their field for chemistry. And it was really great because before, when they were using it, it was $30 per full text view. And now with the increase in usage, it's gone down to $9. And it keeps going down. So that's huge for us. And it kind of leads back to the statistics. It shows that they are actually using it. If you outreach, instruction, partnerships, those kinds of things. Now, for an example that kind of presents an opportunity. You guys see nurse and anesthesia? They only like 22%. So what's going on there? Again, kind of like art. You'll see nursing, huge. They have a huge percentage of usage. So again, do they just not use us? Do they need some specialized databases? Again, we're not sure what's going on, but this data gives us that ability to start those conversations, which are so important. So, you might be wondering, well, what are we going to do next? A couple different things that we discovered from doing the study. In the fall term, as Ed mentioned, I don't remember the first 6 weeks of most fall terms, because I'm usually doing about 50 or 60 instruction sessions. So every single freshman logs in during the fall. Well, if we look at the data for the spring, which we just got, it may show a more realistic picture of what freshmen are actually doing. So we want to look at that. And I think Ed mentioned this, but we're looking at cumulative GPA, and I think it would be better to compare apples to apples, look at the usage statistics for spring compared to spring GPA instead of a cumulative GPA. And we wondered what different kind of information that would tell us. If it would be the same, if it would be different. And then, could we compare ourselves to other peer institutions? Is it possible? Can we take that process that Toner did and standardize it and compare ourselves to people that are like Samford? Is that possible? We're not sure, but it would be good to know if that can be possible. And then we're thinking about adding more facets to what we define as library use. Could we add instruction? Could we add reference statistics? Could we add interlibrary loan? Those are some other studies that have been able to do that. And then also, again, what's huge for us? We want to do outreach. We want to increase our instruction, the reach of our instruction, and also our assessment. Some of the things that we've identified by the study, those departments that seem to have a little niche of not using the library. And then we also want to look again at maybe possibly comparing undergraduate to graduate use. There was a huge difference, but we all would like to examine that a little bit more. So again, thank you very much for, especially after lunch, and lots of charts and graphs and things like that. We really appreciate your attention, and we're so happy to come and share, what we think is kind of an important aspect of, kind of validating our use. So we really thank you very much for letting us come today. Are there any questions?
I'm just curious if you had them logging in, even if they were in the library?
Yes.
Okay. We've narrowed it down to they don't have to log in if they're in the library, but anywhere else on campus they do. But, okay.
Well, and one of the things that I talked about with our data analyst was if I give him a list of the IP addresses of the computers in the classrooms where Stan does most of her instruction, he could exclude that from the analysis.
Sure.
So we could get maybe a better idea of the non-instructional use of our databases. Yes, sir.
Since now our EZProxy is, I'm just looking at it, so our EZProxy is set, so it puts everybody on campus. And that way I know that when they're bigger, it's not put in like the arts and school of arts and sciences. So I know that we can that happen, but they start calling me and saying, well, I'm not supposed to log in now. Does Samford have dorms? And how did you account for that?
Well, I did have EZProxy set up. If they want to hear a question, does Samford have forms and we account for that? we have very well-defined IP address ranges. The norms are in a different subnet than the academic buildings. But previous to that, anyone on campus, even if they were using wireless, would not have seen that login screen. They would have just gone directly to the database resource. And I was doing that with auto log-on directives. If you're familiar with EZProxy, where I say, if you're in this IP address range, just don't ask them. There are two ways to do it in EZProxy. You can either auto log in or you can exclude IP address ranges. We chose from the beginning of using EZProxy to do auto login because that way the URL appears the same whether you're on campus or off. So for those databases that have persistent links maybe to a search or to an individual article, if a professor were to copy one of the links that he saw and we had excluded that, it would include like EBSCOhost.com, but it wouldn't include the EZProxy portions of the URL. So by doing the autocomplete, the URL is the same for on campus or off campus.
Second follow-up question. When you made the switch to have everybody log in on campus, how much tech did you catch?
Surprisingly little. We did get a couple of calls, and I really do think it was literally a couple of calls. And someone asking, hey, is there a problem here? I'm being asked to log on. And when we told them that we were doing the study, my initial proposal to our dean was, let's turn this on for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the semester, because I don't really want to be that big in this. And she said, well, let's do it for the whole semester. And then she said, let's keep doing this, because there really wasn't any, we didn't see any pitchforks and torches outside the library. They just adapted and moved on. I mean, they're accustomed to logging in to access their email.
Facebook and all that.
Yeah, it's the same account, username and password that they use to access Blackboard or email or Banner or
log on their computer, same thing.
right. So it really was not nearly the barrier that we thought it would be. The only barrier that it was, I think, was to our guest users. And we made allowance. We have guest accounts that we can, and we'll slip a paper out to anyone who walks on. And if you look at the login screen, you'll see that it says if you're a guest, go to the circulation desk or one of our service points, and we can give a guest an account and give out that password to all the guests. And so I routinely change that password because it's going to work if they get off campus. I don't know if EZProxy can do this. I'd love to be able to set up an account that would work from this IP address range, but not from anywhere else. But I don't know if it's possible with EZProxy.
I believe you can. You would need to use the exclude. I think you have to use the exclude for specific IPs in there. So what's all about? We have our campus uses KXTB, right? Everything except the library use static IPs. We have some specific databases that capture from this machine and the other machine. But everywhere else on campus they use KXTB. Right. And I've got ours set up to exclude the DHCP subnets. So, thank you for mentioning that.
Anyone else?
About your institutional review board, did they have any privacy concerns, or did they put anything on you to keep those GPAs private?
Because I don't know what that student was. I don't know who that was. I probably, actually, most of the data that I get, other than that scatter plot with that one dot sticking out there all along, were ranges. Now, like I said, there are a couple of places where there are just a few students in a certain GPA range, but I don't know who that student is. I might know that they're in, that there's 2 students in the art department with a GPA below 2.0, but I don't know who they are. So I don't know.
But I thought you were working with their email address.
I was working with their email address, but by the time I got the data back from IR, I didn't know what email address was associated with each one of those.
Well, that's good.
So, the IR people, they have to deal with that because that's who they see, but all I got was kind of the aggregate numbers. 46 people with a GPA between 2.5 and 2.99, 116 between 2.5 and 2.99, and all like that. It's just aggregate numbers. I don't know who the users are. I get the spreadsheet Rich and Pat.
When we presented this to our group of librarians, one of them was really concerned about the privacy issue as well. So I don't think the IRB board would have approved it, but we did make sure because it was dealing with so much student data, even though it was somewhat anonymous, that people's privacy is huge. So we did want to make sure to get that approval going forward too. So.
Basically, between the time that I sent the fact that they logged in and got back who they were, it had been anonymized for us by the analyst in IR. Yes.
Your original audit log, though, that came from EZProxy?
That comes from EZProxy, and the EZProxy audit log records not only successful logins, but also logs login failures and logouts, which include timeouts. And what I did is I filtered out everything but the login success. So that's all that the data analysts saw. And honestly, when I first started talking with him about that, I was going to dedupe that list as well and just give him a list of these students logged in. And he said, no, let me see how many times they logged in. And it was his foresight. I wouldn't have nearly the rich data that I have here if I just knew that this person logged in at least once. But now I can see someone logged in 60 or 100 times over the course of the semester, and others logged in 5 or 10. So it was a simple grep command in Unix to say, grep login.success, and put it in that file over there.
I think you really need to work on that solicitation and collaboration with the IR department before you start doing stuff, kind of, hey, what kind of data do you have? How can we work together? That kind of thing, and because not every IR department is, I guess, willing to share like ours was, so we kind of have to work on that relationship. We had somebody that was really excited about data and crunching numbers, and so we're very fortunate. So sometimes you may have to build that relationship.
Yes.
Is it possible any student would have like a work-study job or some kind of work where they're doing research for a professor that would throw their number of uses of the database?
It's quite possible. Like I said, I don't know what database they're accessing. I don't know why they're logging in. I know that they're not looking at ESPN or Facebook when they're doing this because that's not going through EZProxy. I know they're going to one of our paid databases, but I don't know which one. I don't know what the purpose is. Are they trying to settle a bar argument, or are they working on their senior thesis? And all in back.
One of the things that I know SACS likes to look at is multiple measures of student outcomes and learning. Have you thought of other outcomes besides GPA that you want to incorporate into this?
Absolutely. When I was talking to you about that report for the deans, tomorrow I'm going to talk about instruction statistics. And with the new software called Live Analytics, I was able to say we spent exactly these many hours, taught this many classes, those kinds of things. We also, what was the other one? We also have also reference analytics, and so we're able to say this is how many hours we spent helping students with reference questions, and so it's kind of a total package. Here's how successful they are with their GPAs, use of electronic resources, instruction, reference. It's kind of all in package. The dean's got that report, so we can show, it's not necessarily tied to GPA, but it's showing how we're helping the students.
There's one report that we found from Alistair, I think, and I think it was a consortium of maybe 8 schools. They looked at 5 different metrics. In addition to EZProxy usage, they looked at door counts, at circulation, at reference and instruction. I can't remember. That's all different facets that they were looking at. But one of the things that I found interesting is they said that they had 1.5 million data points, but 1.1 billion of them came from EZProxy. So almost 70% of their data is this one facet. So I feel like we've got the majority of that covered already. I'm trying to work out, we're an innovative customer, and trying to work out if I can get circulation statistics out by who has something checked out. I think I can get that from Create List and then use that to send. Basically, all I need is just to send a username, which we have in our patron database. And if I can figure out how to say, P. Smith 14 had 14 books checked out over the course of the semester, but P. Smith 12 had 2 books checked out. Or this person had books checked out for 28 days, and this person had to check out for 2 days or something like that, you know. I think that there are ways that I can get that data in some meaningful way. I'm just still trying to figure that out.
Like for the reference statistics, we're trying to figure out, did their students scan their card when they came to the reference desk? Because we don't have any way to tie a particular person to the actual reference statistic. We have general guidelines and guesses, but we don't have that person's number or login or anything. So we're not sure how they did that.
I know that some libraries require you to swipe your card to enter the building. We don't have a gate like that, so we don't know who's walking in our front door. So that one would be a hard one, and I think we would see some good pride if we were to put a gate at the front door and ask them to swipe their ID card before they even set foot in the building. And honestly, our building is a gathering place for students, and so a lot of them come in and they're just socializing or hanging out and not using it. We used to have a university center or a student center. Now it's called a university center, and it seems like it's mostly commerce. There's not a gathering place really in our university center, so the library is kind of the social hangout. I wish. Some days I wish we could send them off somewhere else, and have people who actually need to use to sit in those. We've got a limited number of seats, a limited number of computers, and there's people that are sitting in seats who are actually needing to be there, and not just wanting to be somewhere.
Last sweater?
I was going to say, I recently finished a tour of duty at Marion Military Institute, so we have a bit of a shared history. And I was talking to the librarian from Johnson, and we were discussing something similar to this, but we don't have the working relationship with our administration that you do, obviously, because you got some great statistics. I'm really excited about your numbers. But we found that a lot of our students come in, and if there's any way that they can still access the resources that they learned about when they were in high school, whether it's their public library resources or their high school resources, if there's any way that they don't turn off that access. Like one kid came from a really good high school, and his high school librarian didn't take them out of the system for something like 6 years so he could go back and access all those fabulous databases. He was like, I'm not going to use your stuff. Why would I learn to use your stuff if I can use my stuff over here?
So what if it's designed for a 9th grader?
Well, it was because it was a really competitive, good high school. I didn't have that worry about it, but they are finding other ways to access it, and I think one of the issues that librarians may have in the future is if we have this idea of, in the other aspects, not in academic libraries so much, but with public libraries that are excellent, and with high school libraries that are getting more and more competitive and excellent, if the students can go back and use those, they're not going to use our resources, and we're going to continue to have problems justifying it and looking at those kids with 4.0s and 3.5s who never once log into the library website. I just wanted to say that through anecdotal evidence, both the Judson College librarian and I looked at that and talked to some kids, and that's what we came up with. We were like, oh, great, they're using somebody else's stuff.
Well, and a couple of things. This was very counterintuitive, but I think that's a good explanation for it. Login numbers among graduate students were lower than among undergraduates.
Because they go back and use their
they're using the resources that they learned about that were during their undergraduate career. Also in Alabama, you know about Alabama Virtual Library. If they learned about ABL in high school, that may be their comfort zone. And they're using, because a lot of the things that we have are the same resources that are available from ABL. So they may be using their ABL card or their public library card from home to access the same databases that we have, but they're not logging in with their Samford credentials. And so again, they're not counted. Answer all the questions. I do have the spreadsheet up, if anyone wants to see kind of the data before I turn it into charts, just to get an idea of what kind of different things I got from Toner. Any interest? Gender, this one was a big one. I had a lot of fun playing with this and using filters in Excel to say, oh, I don't want to see the student athletes, I don't want to see the Greeks, I don't want to see the University Fellows, which is our honors program, and look at those things. This is where I start getting into the GPA ranges. Let's see. And then we get undergrad GPA by department, by major, by class.
Well, the major was good to see that, there just wasn't enough in the majors to. So when you get this data back, you really need to think about what kind of story am I trying to tell? You've got all this great data, but if it doesn't make sense to anybody.
Here are the classics. There's one student under 2.0 and 14 students above 3.0 and no one in between. So I think this is actually an earlier one where I had 1 point divisions. I went back and I asked Plummer, that's great. There's not enough to see a trend. And can you give me half point or quarter points? And he gave me a half point chart as well. So it was very gratifying to work with him. And as a data analyst, he just loved looking at these numbers, and he was seeing them, seeing what they meant and seeing the numbers before I did. And when he sent me the first one with a half point grades, he said, "You're going to find some really cool stuff in here." But he didn't tell me what was in there.
So Ed would come to my office and we're like, oh, this is great. Get real excited. This is kind of nerdy, but we were really excited about these numbers.
Here's one, and this is kind of my working file. I was highlighting where in red where I didn't see anything, and in yellow or orange where I was seeing progression. You can see 73, 82, 82, 9, and then where you can see those progressions. And here's the seniors I was talking about. 3 seniors, one of them logged in 7 times. But like I said, I don't know who that one student is. I don't know where they are, what they were doing. So I feel like the IRB students' privacy is still being respected. But yeah, I got back so much more than I even expected to find, and it's because I just happened to be connected with one of the people in IR who really loves what he's doing, and I don't know. Since he gathers information for other purposes, I don't know what else he's doing with his data. He loved getting it. He really loved playing with it and giving us those reports. And like Stephanie said, we couldn't have done that without a willing and enthusiastic partner over in IR.
Yes, Orange.
I'd like to know what your plans are in using this data. What are you doing moving forward?
And the what?
Plans. What are you going to do?
Well,
You got the data. What are your plans?
Well, one of the first things I was talking about we did was every single dean of every college has this data, so they know how we're supporting the library. We've looked at the data and located opportunities for where we need to pursue outreach and instruction. Again, I think we'd like to compare it to the spring data to see if it's a trend, because this is a benchmark that's carried through the GPA or not. So those are some things we're going to do with the data. I think we'd like to publish. We're kind of timid about that, but we think that this is something that people need to know about.
I know that our collection management librarian is looking at this to see, where our online resources at least are being used. Like Stephanie said about chemistry specifically, that was in 2008, right when the whole world came crashing down around us, and we were looking at $30 for every time someone looked at a full text. Now, ACS is the most expensive single product that we have. But all the others we were looking at less than $5 per use just because they're being used so much. That one was such a high cost, low use. And we literally threatened, we can't afford to pay this much for this little use. And the chemistry department rose up and said, no, we've got to have that. And the provost managed to find funding to continue it. They managed to find ways to incorporate it into their courses. One of the professors in particular kind of got on board with the ACRL information literacy competencies and started, requiring more of those things in his assignments. And cost us any less, but it's being used more, and that's really all we want to see.